Hi everyone and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul and today we're going to be taking a closer look at this G1.Sniper M3 Micro ATX gaming motherboard from GIGABYTE. So we'll start off with a closer look at the box so we can go over some of the features that we have listed here. This is part of the G1 Killer gaming motherboard series from GIGABYTE, which features some sort of military themed as well as a skull with a knife in its mouth. We also have some other logos here indicating some of the features of the board. Just to point out a few of the standout ones, you get Virtue MVP, which is some software, lets you switch back and forth between the integrated GPU and your Intel Core second or third generation core processor, and a discrete graphics card can actually offload some of the work from your discrete graphics card to the iGPU in your processor, actually help to boost your frame rates in games that you play. So a nice feature that they have there. Of course, you get SLI and Crossfire X support, so you can do two-way SLI or Crossfire X. You could also do quad if you do happen to get dual GPU video cards. As mentioned, it does support Intel second or third generation core processors on the 1155 socket, and that includes both Sandy Bridge processors from last year as well as the more recent Ivy Bridge processors from this year, and I'll give you guys a little bit more information about the difference depending on what processor you go with. Of course, it also has the Z77 chipset, which has a lot of integrated features that are pretty cool. And lastly, if we can just zoom in really close on these specs right here, I'm not going to read them all off, but there they all are for you, the actual detailed specs of the board, so you can make sure that you're getting compatible hardware. Next, we shall investigate the contents of the package here. We have a GIGABYTE Gaming Motherboard Series poster, and if you guys have seen any of the G1.Sniper or other motherboards along those lines, you've probably seen this before. It's the skull with the knife in its mouth. You can hang that on your wall if you like hanging posters on your wall. You also get some decals here for your computer case or wherever you might want to put them. They say G1 Killer. Get some bullets, get some bullet holes. You get also that another skull with the knife in its mouth. It also has a beret. I've been leaving out that the skull is also wearing a beret. There is your GIGABYTE user's manual, so you're definitely going to want to keep this on hand while you're doing your build. Lots of important information in here, such as where to best place your memory modules and that sort of thing. It also has the layout of the board, goes over all of the detailed hardware specs right there, and gives you sort of a general idea of how to go about your installation. Or you can check out our How to Build a Computer video. We also have a 7 Gaming Series Utility DVD, so this is going to have the drivers for the motherboard, which are important to install. It's best to download the latest drivers from the GIGABYTE website if you are purchasing this board, but also get some of the included software utilities on that disk. All of those should be available from the GIGABYTE website, which will probably have updated versions, but there you have it. You get them on a disk as well. You also get a multilingual installation guidebook. You also get all this good stuff, including GIGABYTE case badge right there. You get an input-output shield here at the back. It is black. It also has labeling there, so you can tell which all your inputs and outputs are. You also get some serial ATA cables here. You get a couple light blue ones here, and you get a couple black ones here. They should all be compliant with SATA revision 1, 2, or 3. They all have some clasps on the ends, and it looks like you get one cable with straight plugs on both ends, and one cable with a straight plug and an L-shaped plug on either end, so 2 of each of those. You also get a SLI bridge right here, so this looks like it will stretch over 3 or 4 slots. I'll check that on the motherboard once we get the motherboard out, and yeah, let's do that. And here's a look at the motherboard itself. So as you can see, it is the smaller micro ATX form factor. So if you're building a smaller case, or within a smaller case, you want to build a smaller system, it's probably a good option for you. As you can see, the color scheme they've gone with is black and green. And as you can see, some of the slots here for the PCI Express, the DIMM slots, as well as the GIGABYTE logo here on the heat spreader for the chipset, have some green highlights. The PCB itself is also black. Let me just flip around here to the back really quick so you guys can take a look. A flat black PCB, so keeps with the color scheme. And from here, I'm going to point out really quick the fan headers. There's 4 of them total. They're all 4-pin fan headers that are PWM capable. So you got a CPU fan header right here at the top, system fan header up here on the upper left, another system fan header right here by the motherboard power connector, and then finally one more down here. So should be plenty of system fan headers to plug the fans in your system directly into the motherboard, and that'll give you a little bit more control over them, whether you're using the motherboard BIOS or you're using within your operating system and loading up some fan control software. From there, let's take a look at some of the details of the board. We're going to start down here on the bottom right. with the front panel connectors. So as you can see, Gigabyte puts those in a recessed little housing right here, and they do put some color coding on there to help you determine which one is which. Moving on over here to the left, we have 3 USB 2.0 headers, so you can use those to plug in front or rear panel USB 2.0 ports. Red one here indicates that it is capable of the USB faster recharging times, also capable of charging while the system is off. There's some higher level functions available from that. 2 other ones here are pretty standard USB 2.0 headers. You also get a trusted platform module header, which you can use if you're into that sort of thing. And then finally you get an audio header, front panel header right there that you can use to plug in HD audio connector from your computer case. That will enable your front panel microphone and headphone jacks. Speaking of audio, right here is where most of the audio hardware on the motherboard is situated. That is Soundcore 3D audio, which is made by Creative. It's a Creative CA0132 chip. It's compatible with THX True Studio Pro, also Crystal Voice, and all that hardware is sort of housed right here to keep it a little bit more separated from the rest of the components on the motherboard. Moving along, we have some PCI Express slots right here, and there's some special stuff about the PCI Express slots which I must point out, and that is that the PCI Express compatibility that you will get will be determined by actually the processor that you installed. So if you install a slightly older 2nd gen, aka Sandy Bridge processor in this motherboard, you'll have PCI Express Gen 2 support. If you plug in a Gen 3, aka Ivy Bridge processor, you'll get PCI Express Gen 3 support. So just bear that in mind. The PCI Express Gen 2 to Gen 3, for Gen 3 you get essentially increased bandwidth availability. Most video cards right now cannot saturate even the PCI Express Gen 2 bus, so it's really just a forward compatibility issue, but either way you go, you will have one or the other. For the PCI Express slots, you have a full length, also 16 speed, also wired for 16x PCI Express slot up here at the top. That's where your primary graphics card is going to go. You get a single 1-speed PCI Express slot right there. Then you get 2 more PCI Express slots right here. This one is actually physically full length 16x, but bear in mind that it's wired for 4x. You don't want to plug in a video card here, by the way, because this one's actually controlled through the chipset. And then your lower slot here is actually wired for 8x. So if you plug in a video card to the upper and the 3rd slot right here, you get a little bit more space between them for one thing, but also you can, both of these slots will run 8x, which is plenty of bandwidth for any of the video cards that are out on the market today. Also mentioned that it does come with this SLI bridge, and the SLI bridge is actually plenty long for the board, so you can plug it in right there if you're going with SLI. If you want to set up Crossfire X on this board, you can do that, and most of the time Crossfire X bridge will come with your AMD video card. Right over here we have the black heatsink, and that's right on top of the Z77 chipset. The Z77 chipset does a lot of stuff on this board, controls a lot of the USB, has a peripheral controller hub built in as well. And speaking of that, let's switch over here to look at our serial ATA ports. You get a total of 6 serial ATA ports on the motherboard. You get 2 serial ATA revision 3 6 gigabit per second ports right there. So if you're going with some high-speed data storage such as an SSD, you want to plug it into these ports. You also get 4 more SATA revision 2 ports. 2 of them are right here in these black ports right here. You also get 1 more right here that's facing straight out. And then you get a final one, which is on the back I/O right here in the form of an eSATA port, and we'll come back to the back I/O in just a moment. Moving up the side of the board right here, we get a USB 3.0 port, and with the Z77 chipset, this is actually the first time that you get a natively controlled USB 3.0 port controlled by the Z77 chipset. You also get a 24-pin main motherboard power connector, so that's where you plug in the power from your power supply. Next to that, you have your DDR3 slots. So you get 4 of these slots. It's dual channel, so you want to buy your memory in kits of 2, and you want to use 2 identical, same speed and same capacity memory sticks. You want DDR3 memory, and you actually get official support from Intel for DDR3 speeds up to 1600, which is a bit higher, and that's only if you're using Ivy Bridge. If you're going to go with Sandy Bridge, you get supported speeds up to 1333. And then you also have some overclock speeds supported. Those will vary depending on the type of memory modules that you're using. But again, DDR3 memory DIMMs, it supports up to 32 gigs if you're going to go with 8 gig sticks in each of these slots, and you want to go with 1.5 volt memory, although it's also compatible with the 1.65 volt memory. You also get XMP support, so you can plug in Intel's extreme memory profiles to set your memory, especially if you're going to go with those higher speed ratings. Next to that, we have our socket. This is the 1155 socket, which again supports Intel 2nd or 3rd generation core processors, so Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge both supported here. Z77 kind of launched along with Ivy Bridge, so most folks are probably going to go with an Ivy Bridge processor within this motherboard. You can see your power delivery right here around the side. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 phase power delivery for the processor and the memory. You also get an extra heat sink right here, and that's on top of the MOSFETs for the power delivery, so it's going to keep those a bit cooler, especially if you're going to be overclocking at all. Definitely want to keep your power delivery area nice and cool. Also next to the power delivery, we have a supplemental CPU power connector right there, a 4-pin, so it's going to give you EPS power. You definitely want to plug that in. You will need it in order to have your system up and running properly, and that about covers it for the front of the board. Actually, one quick thing I missed, which is right down here, and that is that this board does come equipped with a dual BIOS. So you see the 2 chips right there. Essentially, it gives you some redundancy, so if you are doing a BIOS update, something like that, you can switch back and forth between those just in case something goes wrong and still be able to recover your system. Finally, we have inputs and outputs here on the back of the motherboard. So starting off on the far left, we have a combo PS2 port, so you can use that to plug in a mouse or a keyboard. Gives you a little bit of backwards compatibility, and also with PS2 you get support for stuff like N-key rollover with some of the higher-end gaming mechanical keyboards. You also get a couple USB 2.0 ports here. You get these 4 video outputs, and that is because the majority of Sandy Bridge and Ivy Bridge Intel processors have an iGPU, or integrated GPU. And actually, without the need for a discrete graphics card, you can plug in via these connectors right here. You got a dual-link DVI connector. You get a D-sub port right there for VGA out. You also get an HDMI and a DisplayPort output. And then also using that the Lucid Virtue software, you can actually do GPU virtualization. So even if you're plugged in right here, you can actually still have a discrete video card plugged in and make use of some of that horsepower. So it kind of gives you some options. There's various video out configurations you can do with this system. Or if you're just setting up a system to get up and running right now and you don't have a video card, you can use these in combination with the iGPU in your processor and get your system going. Again, here you have that eSATA port right there, the red port at the bottom. That's, again, controlled natively by the Intel chipset. You also get 2 more USB 2.0 ports, 2 more USB 3.0 ports, again also controlled by the Z77 chipset. You get an Intel NIC right here, so that is a gigabit LAN chip, so up to 1000 megabits per second. And that also has some software that comes along with it that can do packet prioritization to help boost your internet speeds. Then finally, you get your analog audio outputs here, so it supports up to 5.1 channel audio out. You also get an optical toslink out right there if you want to go with a digital connection. And that's going to wrap it up for this video. Once again, this has been the GIGABYTE G1.Sniper M3 gaming motherboard featuring the 1155 socket for Intel 2nd or 3rd generation core processors, also the Z77 chipset. I'm Paul with Newegg TV. If you enjoyed today's video, you can head over to our Newegg YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe for more tech videos. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.